We go, we're live. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in to Detroit Speaks Finance 101 webinar. I'm Danielle Hughes. I'm co-founder of Detroit Speaks, along with Jasmine Swain and Brianna Alexander. And we have our guest speaker, Ashley Maltbia. She is managing partner of the Maverick firm and owner of the LA insurance franchise in Atlanta, Georgia. So Ashley is also a Detroit native. So I'm going to keep this brief because we want to make sure that we have enough time to take people's questions, and we want to stay right on time. So, Ashley, I'm going to let you take the floor, take the screen, and kind of introduce yourself, and then I'll start with some questions.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so appreciative to have even been asked to do this. It's so important to me, coming from a financial background, but also being from Detroit, not the suburbs. I'm from Dexter and Linwood, to kind of have that connection with my community, because what this is really about is community building and harnessing our power as, a collective unit to really achieve the goals that we set out to achieve. So first of all, thank you for having me, and I'm excited about sharing with whatever tidbits that I can, or plant those seeds that might grow and become whatever we need as a community to go forward. So thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you. So, Ashley, the first question, if you could kind of elaborate on your background and your upbringing and kind of what led you to want to go into personal finance or becoming a financial advisor.
Well, I'm from Detroit. I went to Renaissance High School, and from there I went to Howard University, the Howard University, HU, and from there I got my MBA, University of Maryland, University College, and started off on a career in government, working a 9 to 5, doing RFPs, requests for proposals, like, a lot of other people in the government, and I just decided that that wasn't really where my heart was. Every day I felt like I was kind of just going into a graveyard or doing what I had to do. So I did that for a little while, and then one night, I just said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I hopped in my car, I packed up my car, whatever couldn't fit in my car, I left it in my apartment, and I moved to Atlanta in the middle of the night. Kind of just took a chance on myself. I said, hey, what do I really have to lose? Moved to Atlanta and started my career in commercial real estate. Was always interested in the business of real estate. There's residential and then there's commercial. Residential to me seemed to be a lot more of an emotional process. People have to like the house, they have to like the color of the wall, it has to have curb appeal. Whereas commercial was about, well, hey, how much money does this income producing property make? How much is it worth? How much can I make on my investment? And that really drew me in. But there came a point where I kind of said, I have this HBCU background. I'm from, this amazing black city of black excellence and entrepreneurship. Why don't I see more black people on the other side of the table buying these properties, investing in real estate, and creating these sustainable communities in which they have control because they own? And so from there, I said, well, it has to be something, it has to be a financial education breakdown. Like, we sit in 10th grade classes and we learn about parallelograms and geometry, but we're not learning personal finance. We're not learning that, hey, it's not the best idea to not have any fear about taking out a car loan, but to say that you don't want any student loans. How do we bring that down to a level that really can make a difference where it needs to make the difference? We've got to not necessarily catch up, but we've got to have that proper foundation to get to the next level. So from there, I stopped selling commercial real estate, and I opened the Maverick firm, which we are an insurance-based investment firm. So we offer, we believe that insurance is the way to really make this happen. Insurance is the oldest game in the book. So if there's one thing you can count on, is that you're not going to be here forever. So why not have an insurance policy? If there's another thing we can count on, is that it's illegal to drive around without car insurance. So that's kind of where the LA insurance franchise came in. And I'm just, working and focusing on my community and the minority wealth agenda. Women are some of the top breadwinners, and we're not, necessarily harnessing that power. The average net worth of a black woman is only $5. So, and it only takes, it takes about 6 months for the dollar to leave a Jewish community, and it takes about 6 minutes for the dollar to leave a black community. So taking all of those things in and really trying to harness that to make the changes and touch the people that really need it the most.
Awesome. I'm inspired already just from that. So for our first question, really simple. We want to talk about saving and budgeting. I think as millennial women, especially women of color, that's something that I know I struggle with. And it's like, I wasn't taught that. I didn't see that growing up. And it just comes from a lack of knowledge from my mom, from my grandma, from my great grandma, and it just trickled down. So a lot of this I'm kind of teaching myself because it wasn't taught, it wasn't talked about in my home. So saving and budgeting, what are some things that we can do to make sure that we have a solid budget?
So budgeting is one of the main factors in building wealth. Everybody always talks about building wealth and wanting to be rich or wanting to have this certain amount of money, but you have to start where you are and you have to use what you have. So the Maverick Firm, we offer a free budgeting and debt consolidation tool that I can email out to everyone to have somewhere to start, some frame of reference of, hey, these are my monthly expenses. You have to list everything. Okay, what are my fixed expenses? What are the expenses that don't change every month? I know I got to pay rent or my mortgage. I know I have to pay my car note. I know I have to pay my student loan bills, and those are the same amount every year. So those would be your fixed expenses. Then you have your variable expenses, but they're kind of like your utility bills that might change, every month, and you kind of have to put those into a different category. But it first starts by being able to sit down and look at what you have. I encounter a lot of clients that are just overwhelmed by the fact that they have debt, and they're not really, they don't have a stronghold on it because it overwhelms them. So one of the things that we do at the Maverick Firm is we do money therapy. It's a judgment-free zone. It's a stress-free zone. We're going to sit down, write out everything you've got going on, write out whatever income you've got coming in, and see how we chip this down little by little. And when it comes to savings, to me, not to put too much on the client, but a lot of people might just say, well, I'll just put $10 away here or $20 away here. But take it to the next level. Can you get that $20 to work for you? Is that $20 making any money? So, I mean, that's kind of like a twofold question, but I can definitely offer a budgeting tool that is free from the Maverick Firm. I can send that out to anybody that gives me their email address. And that's the first step, writing it all down. What do you owe Victoria's Secret? What do you owe, the student loan, Sally Mae? Like, let's talk about it. Let's write it down. Let's get it down on black and white.
Awesome. Perfect answer. So as millennial women, what must-haves should we have now to prepare for financial freedom in the future? So if you're in corporate America, is that investing in your 401k now? Is that investing in annuities, a Roth IRA? Like, what is that? Or for small business owners, since they don't kind of have that corporate cushion of the 401k, how else can they go about it?
I think kind of big picture thinking is that frugality is key in this moment. If you have income coming in, if you have a job, you want to make sure that your expenses are such that even if you were out of work for a couple months, that you'd be able to sustain. When it comes from that's just the very foundation of it all, is making sure that you have your expenses such that you're not going to drown if you don't get that next paycheck, which most Americans don't even have $1,000 in a savings account. They don't have $1,000 for a rainy day, but they go to work every day. So first things first, frugality, getting the bills down to something that is manageable, not living above your means. The second thing is maximizing. If you have a job, if you have a 9 to 5 that offers 401k matching, maximize that. If it's 6%, if it's 7%, maximize that. Pay attention to that. That extra $100, $200 in your check is going to be worth so much more if you sacrifice it now and go ahead and contribute that to your 401k. For the entrepreneurs like myself, there are things that we can do to establish our own retirement. We're in charge of that for ourselves. Like, we don't have, built-in 401ks with employers. We have to do a SEP IRA, or we might need to do a Roth IRA to set up those things for ourselves. And it all comes down to discipline. And what we find with entrepreneurs is that we're grinding so hard that we think that we're always going to be able to grind like this because we're young now, because we can take a chance now. But you're not always going to want to grind as hard as you do it. It's going to reach a point in your life where you're going to want your money to work for you. But you have to establish that time by being disciplined now, whether that be an IRA, an annuity. You can start an annuity with as little as $2,500. An annuity is basically just a way for your money to outlive you. Shaquille O'Neal Marshawn Lynch has been able to make $30, $60 million in the NFL and not have to touch his salary because he's living off of his endorsements and his annuities. You take a lump sum of money, you put it into an annuity, then you get paid from that money sitting there and making more money, whether it's gaining 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11% a year. So we have to kind of take ourselves out of consumer thinking and start thinking like investors. that $10, that $20, it makes a difference. Whether you go out to eat every day and say, hey, I'm going to take Wednesday and not go out to eat. I'm going to take that $20 and put it into a savings account and putting into, a high yield investment account. So it just comes from having the knowledge and also having the discipline to do it.
Oop, I'll mute myself. I'm taking notes. So, my next question is, what do you think are the biggest misconceptions that women have going from corporate America to being a full-time entrepreneur?
I think the biggest misconception is that it's supposed to be comfortable, is that you're going to be able to save enough to take a chance on yourself. I think the cookie cutter answer is that, yeah, you want to make sure you have 3 to 6 months living expenses saved, but it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes you just have to take a chance on yourself. I can use my personal experience as an example. When I decided to go ahead and move to Atlanta in the middle of the night, I made sure that my expenses were so low that I would be able to, sustain. If you got a $400 or $500 car note, you got, bills and consumer debt and credit cards, that might be something that you need to work on before you take that leap. You want to make sure that you can sustain whether or not you get a paycheck. To me, and this might sound a little cynical, but you need to prepare for the worst. Don't romanticize entrepreneurship that you're just going to jump out here and have this idea, everybody's going to love it, you're going to make all this money, and it's going to be great. Because it's not like that. It's not like that. And even when you're hearing about, Silicon Valley people getting, these venture capitalists who invest $50, $100 million into their ideas, that's debt. That's $50 million that somebody has put on your head. So it's not all peaches and roses. You got to be realistic about this. Are you ready to make this sacrifice for the life of your dreams? It's not pretty. I can't even express to you how many nights I've had where I've cried, where I've prayed, where I've had to meditate and, why am I doing this? Like, let me just go get a job and, make my little 6 figures and be happy with life. Like, why am I doing this? Why have I done this to myself? Not to mention you have so many naysayers around you, which is why it's important to surround yourself with community, which is what I was saying when we first started the call. It's important to surround yourself with like-minded people because you're going to need that mental fortitude. You're going to need that tribe because it's not easy. Be realistic. You're going to have some hard nights. It's not going to be comfortable.
Awesome. I can definitely identify with that. It's not easy. Taking that leap of faith, it's needed, but that jump is never easy. But the life that you want to live, the life of your dreams, is on the other side of your comfort zone. So, next, I wanted to ask, what was the biggest financial obstacle that you had to overcome to start your business?
I'd say the biggest financial obstacle for me is thinking that the money is always going to come in easily. It's thinking that once you hit a stride that it's always going to be like that. You have to prepare for those times when everything is seasonal. Everything's seasonal. Summer might be your greatest time and, your income's coming in and everything's going well, but then you might hit a lull in winter. Have you prepared that emergency fund? Are you ready for when it's cold? Are you ready for when people are not walking through the door, when they're not walking on the street, when it's not convenient for them? Are you ready for that? Are your expenses such that you can weather that storm? So for me, it was being realistic about the fact that just because it's good now doesn't mean it's going to be good in a couple of months. So understanding the cycle, the business cycle, it's all cyclical.
Awesome. My next question, as a Detroit native, what made you want to start your business in Atlanta? And will you expand to Detroit, and do you take clients out of Detroit?
For me, honestly, coming from DC, for me, it's about the experience and where I want to set down roots. Like, I love home. I love Detroit. I love the revitalization of Detroit, and I would like for Black people to be a part of that as well. I don't want us to be priced out of the areas that we held on to when nobody wanted to be here, when you couldn't pay people to come down Woodward downtown. So I definitely have a strong connection to my hometown. But coming from D.C. and Howard, Atlanta just was like the promised land. It's like the Black Mecca. Like, you can go there and take a chance on yourself and see what you can build. So Atlanta just made sense to me. And not to mention, they had 2 mayors that went to Howard. And, it felt good to my spirit to be in Atlanta at that time. And actually, my franchise, LA Insurance, started in Detroit, in Dearborn to be exact. So I don't know if it would be something that I would maybe want to bring home. Maybe the Maverick firm could come back to Detroit because, there's a bunch of LA insurances in Detroit. So, the Maverick firm might be able to find a home in Detroit. But for now, I really like the Atlanta market for LA insurance because there aren't many of them there. And the other thing is that we are licensed in all states, so we do business in Michigan on the life insurance portion.
Awesome.
I want to jump in really quick to add something to that because, yes, we are in Atlanta. Yes, we did live in DC, and it was an awesome transition for me as well. But overall, like, that's what the whole concept is behind Detroit Speaks. It's the fact that we are everywhere and we still do want to give back. And this is just a way that we can give back from wherever we are and give people the chance to give back from wherever they are. There are people who live in California that still have Detroit pumping through their veins, and we want them to be able to be okay with the fact that they live in California because and they can still give back. For example, I work in nonprofit, United Way of Greater Atlanta. I love it. I'm always doing corporate projects all across the city. But one day I was like, wow, I'm doing all of this but not doing anything at home. And you kind of feel bad about it. And so the whole concept about Detroit Speaks is to let everybody from Detroit give back from wherever they are. So thank you for, being on the call and being willing to share your knowledge with people that are in your city. We really do appreciate it.
Of course, of course. Thank you.
We do. Bree summed it right up. So, next question. So well, not so much a question, kind of a question. I moderated a panel yesterday on the Black Lives Matter movement, the latest happenings in Dallas, in Falcon Heights, in Baton Rouge, and it was at the University of South Carolina through the Black Law Student Association. And on the panel was a man, he works in healthcare. His name is Vince Ford, but one quote that he said really stuck out with me. He said, Black people can revolutionize all of their circumstances overnight through three things: books, ballots, and bucks. So I kind of wanted to touch on that, how important it is to keep our money in our community.
At the Maverick firm, we started the minority wealth agenda. Own your land, insure your family, and at one point grow your own food. So I think it's so deep, but we have been so conditioned to not prioritize ourselves or to think that it's wrong to target our own communities, to serve our own communities. And I think that is something that has to be disbanded. There's nothing wrong with prioritizing yourself. There's nothing wrong with serving people that look like you. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you look at how powerful it is, Killer Mike, did the initiative to start banking black, hashtag bank black. And in 5 days, he was able to get people to deposit over $800,000 into Citizens Trust Bank in Atlanta. So it is definitely a pillar of what we feel is important at the Maverick firm, to understand the importance and the power that we have within our communities. Black people spend trillions of dollars a year. But why in our communities are we not feeding that back into our communities to build the things that we need? So with so many things going on with Black Lives Matter, and I'm here for that, but Black dollars matter, Black careers matter, Black colleges matter, our Black communities matter. We have to care about each other. We can't keep asking other people to care about us and why won't you give us opportunity, and why won't you give us a seat at your table when we could build our own tables?
Perfect. Next question I had, what are some good ways for us as millennial women to begin to invest in our hometown of Detroit? Is that buying property? What is that? Like, what's the first step?
Well, I think the first step is to do what we're doing. You have to be an individual active part in the movement, in the revolution. These things like Detroit Speaks, starting our own businesses, like, it's not always about what everybody can see. It's about changing the mindset. So, in doing your part, and collectively we bring that together. So first, doing your own part. What is your contribution to the world? What is your mark on the world? How will people remember you when you're not here anymore to speak for yourself? Two, now I have to reach back into my real estate past and land is the only thing that cannot be destroyed. So I definitely would be buying something. I've had, dreams of coming together with a group of, people like myself to buy something, commercial property in Detroit, get a piece of Detroit before we can't get a piece of it, before we're completely priced out. So I'd say it's twofold: doing your part and also buying property. It's hard to make a difference and have a say in a community that you do not have ownership in, that you do not pay taxes in, that you are not really a part of, that you really don't have any control over whether they price you out rent-wise. As we saw down on Eastern Market, all of these black-owned businesses that have been there for decades have been priced out. And yes, it's not fair, but why would you stay somewhere for 30 years that you didn't own? Why didn't you make it a priority to own your business, to own the building? So we can only go so far as to blame other people when we have allowed ourselves to kind of like have no foresight, to have no vision. Ownership is crucial. Ownership, ownership, ownership.
You are exactly right. Ownership is key. So I'm going to ask one more question, then I'm going to turn it over to Jasmine. Can we talk about credit for a minute? I know now credit is a touchy subject sometimes in households. I know another thing that trickled down from me that never got brought up in my household was credit. So if I hadn't have started studying on my own and kind of doing that research on my own to build my own credit, I would have a 400 credit score like all the other women in my family. And it's like, we laugh about it, but it's just like, this is like such a common, conversation that's not being had in our community, in our homes. And kids are growing up like, what's a credit score like? And I'm going to keep it totally real with y'all. All of my white friends when I was in school had 720 credit score, 750, high 700s, low 800s, whatever, because their parents were building them up for this. Like they were putting their names on bills and they was in high school and they was in middle school and building their credit that way. Me, on the other hand, had like a 5 something. And, granted, it's gradually, by the grace of God, gone up from there, but I had to do all of that on my own. So let's talk about that, because I know sometimes that can be like a touchy subject.
Credit is a big part. We partner with a company that does the credit restoration and kind of credit counseling and helping people to pay off their bills and to get their credit together. Credit is the type of thing, and I like to approach credit and finances and all those things that are usually stressful very simply. It's not very complicated. It's something that is important, and until you have that right, it's hard to make any other type of moves. So you've got personal credit. You've got your 3 credit scores. It comes from the basic information of knowing TransUnion, Experian, Equifax. You might have a super high score on TransUnion, but it might be troubled on Equifax. It comes from knowing how to dispute things that are inaccurate on your credit. It comes from not overextending yourself and getting yourself into bills that you're not going to be able to afford to pay off. It comes from being more responsible and disciplined when using your money. Your credit score is your adult report card. So that is going to control whether or not you can get into certain circles, whether or not you can get those loans that you need to take your business to the next level. So when your personal credit is okay, then you can personally guarantee and vouch for your business credit to take your business to the next level. Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs, but we are the least invested in. So we're self-financing our ventures because I think it's because we do not know how to use what we have to get where we need to be. So it comes from having personal credit, personally guaranteeing that, having a Dun and Bradstreet number so that your business has a credit file, and not being afraid of debt. Not being afraid of approaching situations as an investor and not a consumer. You have so many people, oh, I don't want no credit card, I don't want no debt, I don't want this. But those are the ways that you build credit. And it comes from fear and not wanting to take a risk and not wanting to be responsible for anything. But in order to get to the next level, you got to take on some risk. You got to do a couple of things that you might not want to do, but be responsible about it.
Perfect. Okay, did I unmute myself? Good. So what are some ways that ladies can kind of DIY their own credit?
I would say the first step would be to pull all 3 credit scores. So many people don't even know what's on their credit. They have no idea because each bureau could have something different. So whether that be freeannualcreditreport.com, which is free, or you can sign up for, say, like a privacyguard.com, which is, a paid subscription, but it monitors your credit for you. If anything changes, it gives you that kind of thing. So you've got freeannualcreditreport.com, and you've got privacyguard.com, Privacy guard.com. And the first step is the first step. You got to know what's on there. You got to check it for inaccuracies. And when you're really ready to make a move, if you want someone else to handle that for you, we have partners that do that as well. We work with the credit pros that, help out with that factor as well. But do it yourself, I would say pull it, see what's on there, and know how to play the game. It's a game to all of the credit stuff. Like the creditors, even if some people think that just because you paid it off that it's going to come off your credit. No. It's just going to show as you paid it off, but you didn't pay it on time, so it's still going to be a negative on there. So you can do things like negotiate for a delete. If you have something that you owe and you haven't paid it in a year, maybe you can contact the company and say, this is what I can do. Let's do a negotiation for deletion. I'll pay you if you promise me to delete it off my credit report. So, that whole thing is, being responsible and prioritizing that.
You are exactly right. Okay, now we have a question from a viewer that I'm going to ask. Do you have any advice for any students that are preparing to take out their first school loan?
Oh, yeah. So, I'm really familiar with the student loan debacle. I have 2 degrees. I come from a single-parent household. There was no college fund. So I had to self-finance, or I was going to be going to, the school down the street. Nothing wrong with that, but I wanted to go to Howard, and Howard was expensive. So I would say first things first is finding out what your expenses really are, because what you'll find is a lot of these companies want to lace you with debt and a bunch of money that you don't need so you can get a fat refund check, and yeah, it feels good in a moment, but you're going to have to pay that back. So if the school is $20,000 a year, maybe you take out a little bit extra for living expenses and that kind of thing, but don't let them folks give you $50,000 a year and you owe $200,000 on an undergraduate degree for a career that's only going to pay $40,000. So, I'd say one thing to students is to be realistic about, if you're going to be getting a job and you're going to college for this job, is to be realistic about what salary you're going to be making when you come out. Be realistic. Like, is this a job that's going to pay $35,000 or $40,000 a year? Be realistic about what your end goal is. Like, begin with the end in mind. How much do you need? How much will you be making? And also keep in mind that once you get out, there are ways to consolidate the debt. There are ways to, work with what you've gotten yourself into. But first things first is to have some foresight. And, what does that salary look like? Are there opportunities in the field that you're interested in?
Now, Jazzy, I'm going to turn it over to you if you have any questions that you would like to ask. And viewers, you can send in questions at any time by using the Q&A tab. It should be on the left side of your screen. So click that, type in your question, and you can ask those questions at any time during the webinar.
So I guess I would say, I know, like you said, it's very intimidating and scary for people to really think that they can gain financial freedom, especially if they're under a mountain of debt. So in your experience, what would you say would be the most common misconception to gaining financial freedom?
Is that you have to be rich in order to build wealth. People think that you already have to have, all of this money to put it somewhere, when really it just starts with those little sacrifices. Maybe you start an account with betterment.com. They link it to your checking account, and say you have $5, $10 a day, or every once in a while, $25, $50 a month that you can put into an account that you can't really touch. You have to use what you have to get to where you want to be. Not all of us come from money. Not all of us come from the opportunity to have to start with a nest egg. A lot of us have to create our nest egg. So bite off a little bit at a time. Break it down to, doable and actionable steps. It's not bigger than you. You're in control. Maybe it starts with not eating out so much. Because I don't know how, I can be honest. Like, I eat up a lot of my money. I'll just be honest about it. Like, I do not like to cook. I don't have the time. I work too dang on hard to have to come home and slave over a stove, okay, when I'm pulling 14 and 16-hour days. So, you know, maybe it's not eating out every day, or maybe it's only eating out once a day and not 2 or 3 times a day. But, definitely understanding that your situation is not bigger than you, and you don't have to be rich to get started. Set aside $25 a month to start until you can get to the next level. Take a look in your closet. There are all kind of options and ways for you to make money. Look in your closet. Maybe you can start something on, what is that? What are the name of those sites? The ones where you
Poshmark.
can sell, Poshmark. Maybe you sell one thing a month and that's your $50 for your retirement account or your betterment account. Like, bite off a little bit. Like, make it fun. Set small victories so you can feel good about yourself. You know?
Yeah, I think that's great. I know for me personally, I was that person that thought that it's just this big grand thing, especially for saving. And when I started doing it, it became easier and easier because I saw where the money was going. Versus, like you said, I eat out a lot, and it's like $50 goes by very quickly at a restaurant. So being able to put that $50 somewhere, I think is really awesome. I think that's great feedback. Um, and so I know you're an entrepreneur and you have like great successful businesses. At which point, like, did you ever work a 9 to 5 in conjunction with starting those businesses, or did you just straight up take a leap of faith? You had like no other form of income. You just did it. You're like, I'm doing it right now. Like, how was that process?
I had $2,500 when I got to Atlanta. And that's why I really like, I try not to get too crazy on people, but God is real, and it is very much a spiritual journey when you decide to take this leap of faith. People say that in theory, oh, take a leap of faith, have faith, take the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. But that is very true, and that is very real, and it has, you know, nothing to do with what I could have put together myself, because the path and the plan that I have for myself looked nothing like what's going on right now. So I would
Right.
definitely say, like, have goals, have dreams, but be malleable in your approach to this. I thought I was, when I first graduated from Howard University, I thought I was going to enter corporate America. I was going to take it by storm. I was going to be a VP. I was going to be the next, I don't know, Condoleezza Rice or something. I don't know. So, and, of course, politics could still happen. But, the plan I have for myself, it didn't pan out like that. But I can say that I am content and happy and fulfilled and grateful, because it's a haze. Entrepreneurship is a haze. And you got to pledge entrepreneurship. So, I mean, I've been through the valleys, and I'm sure I've got some more difficult times coming, but I'm ready for the ride because I believe in it.
You're definitely dropping major keys right now.
And
So
girl, it's hard out here, okay?
it is. So for that person who's thinking like, okay, where can I start? Are there any books or anything like that that you would recommend would be like the first step to gaining financial freedom or starting a business? What are some kind of books that led you to where you are?
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Like, I'm a little unconventional, and I'm not that traditional. So like, my approach to this is not like everybody else's. I have friends that drop books and the Celestine prophecy and all kind of stuff, and that's not my swag. Like, I'm very much into current events and how, what's going on with the, Brexit, and how that affects us over here in America, and what that means for stock prices, and keeping my ear to current events and really connecting the dots between what's going on politically and how that could affect me financially, or what opportunities that creates, knowing that, hey, America is so pro-gun. Who manufactures the guns? How do I invest in that? How do I buy stock in that? How do I make money from, a bunch of racist, folks who want to, change the DNA of America, and we're getting more progressive, but they want to take us back. So how do I profit from that? So my approach is a little bit, different when it comes to that. Like, I'll sit on here and scroll Twitter, and I don't know everything that's going on in America. I'm following, Trade Watch. I'm following Financial Times, Money. I'm constantly, reading Entrepreneur magazine, and, because I'm ADD. Like, I like to, it's got to be fast for me. I got to be able to, connect the dots and skim, and like, I'm just you know? So for me, honestly, staying up with current events and understanding how that affects your interest and what you see for yourself and what's going on around you and being hyper self-aware, hyper self-awareness. You know, so one book I read, I really like the Four Agreements, because I feel that entrepreneurship is just as much of a spiritual journey as it is a physical and financial journey.
I have a question really quick. I'm going to jump in. How, as an entrepreneur, especially a young entrepreneur, how do you practice balance?
That is an everyday struggle, okay? It's an everyday struggle. I think it's really important to set aside some you time, and I think we've kind of gotten into this generation of I can sleep when I die, or I'm grinding while you sleeping, and it's just really important to know that you are a human being and you need rest, and you need to tune out sometimes, turn it all off. You know, we're constantly on our phones, we're constantly reading emails, and understanding that me time, you can't be what the world needs you to be if you're not what you need to be to yourself. So making sure to set aside some me time, whether that's your Sunday or, you know, your Monday night, or, you know, not to always be going, and who are you really trying to prove yourself to? Like, this is a personal journey. Do what makes you comfortable. Do what makes you okay in a me space. You know, what do you need for your mental fortitude and your, you know what I mean? So definitely taking some me time is important. And I try to do that, you know, with things that I enjoy doing, and keeping the parts of my life private that should be private, because that's important to me too.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, viewers, you can send in those questions. Please do. I'm not sure if I have access to them. Let me see. I think I may have went through all the questions that I had to ask. So I want to take it back, since the hashtag Black Lives Matter movement is so pertinent right now. And I'm very inspired from that panel that I told you that I moderated yesterday. Can we talk a little bit more about how we can build wealth in our Black community? I'm reading Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice by Dennis Kimbrough right now. And that's a main theme throughout that book. So just kind of touch on that a little bit more.
I saw something a guy said about, let's stop trying to escape the hood and turn the hood into a decent place to live. I think it's so eerie that people have so many things to say about gentrification, but these are the same people that have the resources to do the same thing in the same communities. So to me, it comes down to, instead of pointing the finger at other people, pointing it back at yourself. What can I do to build my communities up? So I think that starts with making a conscious effort to do the things necessary, whether that be supporting Black-owned businesses, supporting Black-owned banks. And I just see people have so many excuses as to why they don't want to bank Black or why they don't want to support a Black business, but will walk into, you know, an Asian nail shop where they don't even say hi to you. Pick a color, and they talk to you any kind of way, and you support that faithfully every 2 weeks. So I think that it comes from having patience with each other. And, you know, sometimes it's hard for people to understand that it's not going to be a perfect, smooth interaction every time you encounter a business, because it's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. And it's easy to call the plays from the sidelines when you're not in the game. You know, so you don't understand how much it takes to turn those lights on and put that open sign on every morning at the same time, you know, every day, and closing at the same time. So it comes from having a little bit more respect for each other and our own journeys, and also being realistic and what we're really trying to build. And pan out. You know, it might be inconvenient for you to have to drive to the Black bank because it's a mile further than the other bank, but what are you trying to accomplish? It's a much bigger goal here than your immediate comfort. Grow up. We got business to handle, you know?
I think that's a great point. I actually saw a post on Facebook, and it goes, it was like along the lines of, I think it's interesting that when Beyonce or whoever drops Ivy Park, we run out to get it, but when your friend just launched the same sportswear line, we don't support it. So in your experience with being an entrepreneur, was that something that you had to face, like as far as like your peers supporting you, or did you not even think about it? Did you just totally give it to God and just say like, hey, if it's your will for me to be successful, I'm just walking in you? Or like, did you experience that lack of support or anything like that in your journey?
And so the other thing about me too is that I think that this narrative that black people don't support each other is rhetoric too. I really do. There wouldn't be so many black businesses and successful black businesses if we didn't support each other. So
Yes.
I don't think that that is true. We do support each other. My friends have been some of my biggest cheerleaders and biggest supporters, so much so that some of the people I went to school with are now on Team Maverick. My first clients were my friends from Howard, were my friends from Detroit. So let me never, ever, let that be known that that's a misconception. We support each other, and I am so grateful for that. Friends, Nicole Goodman, she promotes my business on her Facebook. I didn't ask her to do that. She does that because she wants me to be successful. So I do think that there should be more of a concerted effort, but I also think that we do it. There's a reason why we're still in business. We support each other, but it could be better.
I personally haven't had that experience, but that post was just so compelling to me because it is rhetoric, like you said, like I do hear it a lot. But and when I saw that, I was like, dang, is this like really how it is? Like I personally don't have my own business, so I don't know. But like I just wondered if that truly is the case, or if that was the reason why you chose Atlanta for your businesses, or just thought I'd ask. But clearly that's not the case, so that's good. And then just one question from me. If you could pass along some gems for that person who's teetering, quitting corporate America and starting their own business, or whatever the case may be, what are some like your top 5 things that should be in order before taking that leap? Because I know you mentioned one of them was have money set aside where you can sustain when business isn't good. Aside from finance, what would be some other things that you think should be in place?
I think a certain level of realism should be at the forefront as well. Sometimes people think just because they have a good idea that they like, that other people will like it too, and that's not always the case. And then you also have to keep in mind that whatever you're doing, like yes, of course you want to be profitable, but you also want to be sustainable. So whatever you're doing should have a bigger goal to it. The Maverick firm, yes, we do insurance. LA Insurance, yes, we do insurance, but it's also to spread financial education in our communities and build up our communities for something that's going to last even when I'm no longer here. So it's important to consider, what are you really doing? It can't just be for the money. It can't just be for profitability. How are you going to be sustainable? What world issue, what community issue are you targeting with your business that's going to be changed or helped because you're here, because you started a business? And then also more pragmatic and more practical is you want to have 3, 4, 5 months living expenses set aside. You want to make sure, because it's very stressful to try to run a business and deal with all the things that come with being an entrepreneur, and worry about the lights staying on and worry about the mortgage being paid. So, I mean, you definitely want to do all that you can do to set aside as much capital as you can.
So I want to add a question that was asked by a viewer. What are some things that I can do for my child now to make sure that he is financially stable in the future?
I think one of the most important things to do for children, and it's one of the most it's easy to it's not necessarily easy for everybody, but it's pretty simple. Get a life insurance policy. God forbid you go before your son, but most times parents go before the children, and so why, if we know that we can count on death, why wouldn't you want to leave your son something in the form of a life insurance policy, whether that be $100,000, $200,000, $1,000,000? If it's something that you can contribute little by little every month, why wouldn't you want to do that? And then the other thing is that a lot of people think that life insurance is something that only pays out if you die. There are life insurance policies that build cash value. So if your son's 1, 2, 3 years old and you get that life insurance policy now, by the time he's ready to go to college, you could have 20, 30, $40,000 built up in that life insurance policy that you can borrow against to send him to college. So, there are ways to there are options within the insurance space. And working with A-rated and reputable companies is one thing that is extremely important. But there are options within insurance. And if you would like a one-on-one consultation about that, feel free to reach out to me on the website, www.themaverickfirm.com. That's THEMAVERICKFIRM.com. And, we can set up some time and figure out what might work best for you and your budget, because everybody's different.
Awesome. So my last question for you is, do you have any advice or words of encouragement that you would like to share to young Detroiters that may be watching or may watch this in the near future? Because it will be linked to YouTube immediately as soon as I press stop. And any path they might be on right now and they think that they can't get out of it, if they're aspiring to go to Howard or wherever else and want to start a business, do you have any advice that you would kind of give to your 16 or 17-year-old self that you would like to share?
Don't be discouraged. There's that little voice in your head or the people around you that try to make you feel small, or like some things might be too big for you to accomplish or too big for you to at least have a little interest in. Understand that none of this stuff is bigger than you. People feel like they don't want to start stock market investing because they don't understand the stock market. Nothing is bigger than you. Somebody created that. Somebody put those terms there, and all you got to do is pick up a book or figure it out. Nothing is bigger than you. You have so much power within you. The human will is just so vast. Everything you need is already within you. And whenever you don't need, seek out. And don't be afraid. This is one thing. Don't be afraid to partner with people. You can get a lot more done with like-minded people than you can by yourself. Partner wisely, but don't be afraid to partner with people. Don't be afraid to get around people. Don't be afraid to, collaborate with people and build. People don't know what you need help with until you let them know that you need help. So don't have so much pride that you approach things thinking that you already have to be an expert in a field that you're interested in. Everybody started as a beginner at one point.
Okay, so I have a question. So for our college students who are on the call, I know when I was in college, I worked as a student assistant for university housing at Georgia State, where I went, but I was also the queen of the side hustle. So whether that was writing people's papers, editing resumes, constructing resumes for people, what are some ways, unconventional ways, that students can make money while in school? Or some ways that you made money when you were in school?
Okay. Well, I guess you could harness whatever talents you have, but that wasn't really my thing. I kind of focused on school. For me, it was more important to be well-rounded. I wanted to focus on school. I wanted to enjoy my college years. I wanted to pledge. I wanted to, get everything that college was supposed to offer me out in those 4 years. So for me, I worked a little job, but I wasn't making enough to really make an impact on anything that was worth the sacrifice to me. So I would have to sacrifice enjoying my college experience for $8 an hour, and to me, it just wasn't worth it. So, but I would definitely say if you can use the free time that you have to establish something sustainable, and I think that, it's one thing to call it a side hustle, but if you have a talent that you're good at, and you're going to devote your time to it, make it worth it. Start the business. Start an LLC. If you do hair, if you do nails, make it a real business. Investigate ways on how to start your LLC. If you're in the state of Georgia, you can just go to the Secretary of State's website, start your LLC, become a real entrepreneur. Yes, a side hustle, but side hustles make a lot of money. So get serious about it. If you're going to sacrifice the time that I spent trying to be well-rounded and wanting to do everything that college kids did, make it worth it. That could be the start of your empire.
Exactly. Get serious about the side hustle. Hashtag the side hustle. So my little cousin is on the call. Hey, Gab. And she just sent me a question that she would like to ask. She said, what are some ways that someone can save money who always has to give money out for bills or whatever? And she's a student at Western Michigan University. So just looking for some ways that she can begin to save and budget. You know, she's not a big girl just yet. She is a big girl, but not paying big girl bills just yet. So some ways, you know, like the bills that we have in college, how can she kind of budget?
Get an account that is not easily accessible to you. So something that I use is betterment.com. So betterment.com, and it's an online investment account that links to one of your accounts, and you can just drop $10 or $20 in there, and they invest it in different stocks or an emergency fund, or get something like that that isn't as easy for you to access the money. And whether you throw $5 or $10 or $20 or $50 into that, at least you have something and you have started your investment portfolio, and you can do that with 25 bucks.
Unmute myself. Ladies, do you have any other questions? Green Jazz, no, we're good. Well, Ashley, unless you have anything else that you would like to add, anything else you want to elaborate on, I think we're going to wrap up this call. You've given us a wealth of information. You dropped major keys. We're going to call you DJ Maltbia. You dropped all of the major keys.
I definitely wanted to say, and thank you so much for having me, but if you're interested in getting more information on what you can do to start to use what you have and start where you are, please visit the website, www.themaverickfirm.com, subscribe to our newsletter, reach out, send us a message. We are here to serve our community, and we care. So definitely do that, and I really appreciate you all having me, but if you're interested, I'm here.
No problem. Thank you so much. And we'll send out the links and everything, some key points when we send out emails after this is over. So, ladies, if you have anything else to say, anything to add.
Just thank you for this. Like Danny said, you dropped major keys, and we took some great notes. So just thank you for your time, and thank you just for sharing your knowledge. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate it. Shout out to Howard.
Ain't you know?
Yes, we really do appreciate you, and just remember that everything that you said today will touch somebody. You will help somebody, take that first step to financial freedom just by, sitting on your couch and chatting with us for an hour. So we do appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Ashley, my little cousin, says thank you for answering her question. It really helped.
No problem, cousin.
So if that's it, we're going to wrap up. And like Bree said, this is going to be on YouTube from our YouTube channel. I believe it's Detroit Speaks on YouTube. I will email out the link, so don't worry about that. And we just want to thank everyone for tuning in and spending an hour of your time with us. We really appreciate it. We hope you learned a lot. I know I learned a lot. I don't want to speak for everyone else, but I believe I can kind of make that a general consensus that we all learned a lot. So, Ashley, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it, and we will be in touch. And this concludes Finance 101. Thanks, guys.